Well, welcome everyone. We'll start our meeting. The first item on the agenda, to consider approving the minutes from the March 23rd meeting. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Item number 2 is the first reading of the subdivision ordinance change.
This is the same ordinance you had at the last council meeting, and I have our code enforcement officer Dave here to answer any questions.
We went over that last time. Does anybody have any questions that they had left over from before?
I move we pass the first reading. We change the words.
We have a second. All those in favor? First reading of changes to the shoreline zoning ordinance.
I'll turn to Dave on that.
This is just an update that the state did in their model policy a couple of years ago. I was talking to the state shoreline zoning coordinator, who said that he would review our ordinance and noticed that we didn't update this section yet. It doesn't really change anything you can do within the shoreline zone, it just kind of changes the way you do it. One of them is before and after photographs, because a lot of times we're finding people say they're cutting 3 or 4 trees for a project. You go back and it looks like it's a lot more than 3 or 4 gone. No way to prove it. So that's just a little tool I put into the model policy to help navigate the problems. And the other portion is just the DEP approves contractors to work within the shoreline zone. And this just says that anyone working with the shoreline zone will get that approval. It doesn't change any of the rules, doesn't change the amount you can cut or not cut or build or not build. It just changes how we get to that point.
Question?
Yeah, who enforces the rules? If somebody breaks the rules, is it the town do that, a civil lawsuit, or
Yes.
the state?
Yeah, no, it falls on the town.
The town. Okay. It's good of the state to help us.
Yes.
Well,
They update the policies to help us.
Any other?
Just to follow up on that one. You have to get a permit from you if you're doing any work on the shore. And I'll use a tree cutting as an example. If somebody needs to cut a tree that is not typically allowed because it is dead, diseased, dangerous, or whatever the other D is, you have to approve those, correct?
The actual answer is more no than yes, depending on how much they're cutting. Our shoreline zoning ordinance that we currently work under allows 40% of the trees over 4 inches in diameter to be cut every 10 years. But there's a point system for it. They don't want 40% of a 10-acre lot cleared. They're gonna be so many trees per 25 by 25 square foot area. So there's actually a point system they use on the size of trees to help protect the shoreline zone.
But on a single tree,
On a single tree, they do not need it. Because you're allowed to cut, again, 40% of the trees.
no, but let's say this is a big tree. But it's falling, it's diseased, whatever. That's what your predecessor used to, his comment was, if it's one of the 4 Ds, you can do it. If it's not, you can't. But there was never anything, I'm just thinking of the picture thing. If somebody had a tree they wanted to cut down and they said it was diseased, it might make sense to take a picture to show how diseased it was, so that if somebody complains, I'm just wondering if this falls over into that type of thing as well.
Somewhat, and the predecessor was doing that. There was a way to kind of monitor what was being removed for trees, and say it's a typical tree. The other portion of tree removal is if you open an opening in the tree canopy greater than 250 square feet. How the state wants us to measure them, I really have no idea. So if your example, if it's a large tree and you create an opening in the tree canopy greater than the 250 square feet, they'd be required by ordinance to do replanting. So that's kind of where the permitting, so to speak, comes into the tree removal.
So a small lot, and a big tree, that would cover that.
But even if it's dead, you can still cut it. but
No,
you have to-
dead, dying, and disease or dangerous, they can remove them. They get rid of the hazard.
And it's up to you if
If it
you have a
meets one of
question
them
to see if it
categories.
actually is dead disease.
So then they leave it on the code enforcement. If I get a letter from an arborist saying it's something wrong with it, I take that word on it because I am not a tree expert.
No,
If
I'm
I can
thinking,
look at it and see that it's an orange tree, there's no leaves, I get it. But other than that,
no, I'm thinking the other way, if somebody cuts a tree down and then after the fact, somebody complains, how would you know if it was in one of those
really
conditions?
no way.
Unless they, that's what I was thinking, they might have this come along and say, if you take a tree down that you think is dead, you have to take a picture. So if anybody complains, then you've got proof that it was in fact.
And I do believe that was their goal on the images before and after the joint type of work in the shoreline zone.
Now, should we call this the first reading where we
Yes.
didn't discuss that last week?
Yes, it's been posted as a first reading.
Okay.
So moved.
Moved in second, all those in favor? Item 4, vote to accept anonymous donation towards the Pleasant Point Park, and Ella has some information here for us on that.
First off, I've got a map that I kind of put together to give you an idea of the location of the playground's gonna be. And the way this thing's oriented is got the parking lot on the left hand, on the right hand side, ball field on the left, snack shack, and the park proposed playground's gonna be right on the very left hand side. It's kind of tucked into the corner between the woods and the road. It's nice and flat. The problem that we had by putting it over in the dog walking area is, one, it's extremely wet down there. It's gonna take a lot of site work to get that to dry out. The other issue is, after reviewing the guidelines by the federal government of playground construction, to have these kids going across an active parking lot when there's ball game going on, and the proximity to the water, it had two risks that really probably was gonna go and increase our insurance. And we'd have to do some things to change that. So we actually went out with Eric Seekins today and looked at it. This new location makes all the sense in the world. So that's where the new proposed site is on it. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is I kind of gave you a little summary sheet on what's going on. I also gave you a price on this playground on the second page, and on the third page is a contract that I'm going to ask you to authorize me to sign with O'Brien and Sons. This is the company that's actually selling this. This is going to be a contract between the town of Oakland and O'Brien Sons, where funding is going to be provided by an anonymous donor. We've got a current balance of $24,870.98 in the fund. Now, the new donation came in at $25,000. First move on that, I'm going to need you to approve accepting the $25,000. That's going to give us a total of $49,870.98. Total cost for playground equipment is $63,658.40. Minus the account balance, there's a remaining balance of $13,697.42. There's been a deal that's been worked out with O'Brien Sons, where they will deliver the playground equipment in June and leave the remaining balance unpaid until August 1st. The donor's going to have money that's going to be available. We'll make another donation first part of August that will cover the entire balance. This is an incredible gift. I mean, this playground equipment, it's going to be the only kind in New England, and it's just something that's you're gonna love it. You're gonna see people out there using it all the time. And I really, part of the reason the push to get it done is June is because of the cost increases. We're getting a reduction in price because we're going to be the only area that this playground is actually being used anywhere in New England. We're the first one, so we get a reduction for that. And there's going to be a price increase, 5% price increase, which is so I'm recommending that we have three votes. One, to accept the $25,000, two, to accept the arrangement of $13,000, and three, for me to sign a contract so I can get this off to him tomorrow morning. he needs to have it in his hand to keep the price the way it is tomorrow.
Do we have enough faith in the donor that he will come through on 8/1?
No question whatsoever. Absolutely.
That would be my only concern.
Yeah, that's not
We
gonna be a
get
problem.
13,000.
I wouldn't take this risk if I thought that was the case.
We do have some money that we put aside for that park out there, fencing and stuff years ago, didn't we? Or
Yeah,
something?
we've got some funding, but unfortunately, for us to spend over 10,000, we have to have town meeting.
Right.
And, you know, we got plenty of cash to take care of this. It's a problem, but it's not going to be a problem.
So this donor gave the first donation too?
Yeah.
Plus the 25,000,
Great.
plus the third donation, which will make the total.
Yeah, this donor has given the town of Oakland almost $64,000. I think.
I guess I would trust him for the 13 if he's already given me 64.
I'm sorry, did you say that the same donor gave the 24?
Yes. Yes.
So, okay.
Any other questions? So first, we need a motion to
Except the 25,000.
accept the $25,000.
Make the motion, we accept it.
All those in favor? Then we need a motion for the total, right?
The motion total for 63,000. But
Which
that's,
includes the 13,697.42.
Right.
Did you do that, Dave?
I can. I make a motion, we
Second.
accept.
All those in favor? And now we need a motion to allow Gary to sign this contract, which will be until the 1st of August, you said.
I'm gonna sign this contract tomorrow morning. And that'll send it off and we'll get the whole thing working.
Move it. David, second. All those in favor? We just did the part here, sir. Now we're waiting on you.
I apologize for being late. I had a
We knew where you were.
quick presentation. Number 4 is to vote on accepting an anonymous donation towards Project 25. That was one you did. MRS discussion.
You want me to give a little back history on that?
Yeah, if you could start this out.
I'll start it out while he's signing this paperwork there. The MRC, as we talked a little bit last meeting about that, is the Municipal Review Committee. It's the group of 115 towns that monitor and get rid of our municipal solid waste. If you remember, we used to have a dump, which we changed to a transfer station back in the early 90s. And MRC was formed in 1991. And all these towns got together because they were sending their municipal solid waste up to PERC. PERC was juggling around with the rates, the tipping fee per ton. So they wanted to get into a group so that they could have more leeway, more clout talking to PERC to keep the tipping rate where it should be. So they formed this MRC, which had more than 115 towns in it at the time. But then PERC, when they were organized, they were given permission to generate electricity with this trash, and they were paid way above the commercial rate for the electricity they generated. I think you could buy electricity for 2 or 3 or 4 cents a kilowatt hour, and they were getting 20 or 18 or 20, I think. It was part of the state regulations that they made to help with trash. So, and that ran out. That was running out in 2018. So they were talking whether they could be financially viable, whether they would close, what would happen. So the MRC started looking for competitive bidding proposals to some new way to take care of municipal solid waste that didn't include burning it or landfill. And then they got this fiberite proposal, and that's the one they accepted. They had 3 or 4 different ones. They accepted that one. They built this plant up in Hamden, and they had a lot of delays on getting it built, on getting material, getting permits to do this process, getting permits to build the building and everything. And so then at that time, when they got the building ready to go, all the towns had an option that were members of MRC of dropping out. And over the years, they kept putting away money, so much of your tip fee, I think it was $2 or $3, went into this tip fee stabilization fund, they call it. And if you wanted to get out, when this new process went in, you could get that money. Waterville needed money bad, and so they took their money. And I've seen estimates between 700,000 and 2 million that they got, but I'm not sure which is correct.
Waterville got 630,000.
630, okay, I knew it was a sizable amount. And because they wanted to balance their budget. And all the time that the waste had been going up there since we had a transfer station, Waterville was the member of MRC, but our waste went along with Waterville's. So it was all considered as part of Waterville's contract. So they got so much a ton for all this waste all those years, which included our waste.
We should have gotten some of that.
We should have got some of that money back, but we never did. Mike Roy wouldn't talk with us about that. I don't know, we had 2,000 tons a year, and I don't remember what Waterville had per year, but it was considerably more than ours, but still, we did own a portion of that refunded money. And the new facility got going in the fall of 2019. It reached commercial operation, got all going and working good. And in May of 2020, they actually reached a recycling rate of 60%. So everything that went in there, our 2,000 ton a year and everybody else's, 60% of it went out as a product, either plastic bottles, tin cans, other metals. They made briquettes, which some of us saw up there today. Plastic that wasn't usable for something else, they made into a little briquette, looked like a candy bar or something, and there was a lot of energy in it. They sold them to Palmerston to burn in their furnace. And then they made a pulp, which looked like egg crates. If you took them and put some water in an egg crate, mashed it all up, that's what it looked like. They wanted to sell that. There was companies in the state that wanted to buy it. And the DEP wanted it tested. So they went to a laboratory, they tested it. DEP said, well, they think they should have some more tests. So anyway, they got some more tests, and finally, they didn't want to wait any longer. They found a company, a paper company in Canada that was willing to buy it and pay a pretty good fee for it. And then COVID struck, so you can't go to Canada anymore. And at the same time, they were looking for a new operator. There was an outfit by the name of Neats that operated it for them. And they weren't happy with their maintenance procedures and the way they were operating. So they had another company lined up to come and start looking it over to operate it. And COVID struck, so the other company couldn't even come here. There was no restaurants to eat, no motels to stay in, because they closed everything up due to COVID. The plant shut down. It's been sitting there since May of 2020. Now MRC is finally, after all this time, the receiver through the state, and this place is going to be sold by June 1st to somebody. MRC wants to put in a bid on it, and they got a bid, which I don't know much about business, but they call it a stalking horse bid. What it is a low ball. They want to buy the place for $1.5 million. And so they got this bid for $1.5 million. They put it in, but there's 5 or 6 other companies that are looking at the place. They're in there touring the place and looking it over to see if they want to buy it and get into this business. And some of these are big companies. So by June 1st, this is supposed to be settled. Either one of these companies is going to buy it, or MRC can buy it if they want. If they can get a loan, they've been to all the different state agencies, that any state agency you can think of that lends money or has money to put out, they've been to them and talked to them. And the state is very interested in this, because this is doing more recycling than any other plant in the state. When it was working, I mean, the state's goal was to reach 50%.
Right.
This plant was doing 60 from day, before it shut down. So there's a lot of interest. It's going to be in June. we will be asked, if the MRC buys it, we will be asked if we're interested in putting our full faith and credit into part of the loan that they want to get to put this back in operation. We're talking about borrowing $20 million. Ella and I did a little figuring. Our estimate would be between $350,000 and $400,000 they would want us to secure on that loan. It's an option. We don't have to. It'll be up to us come June. We don't have to decide that now.
You know, what I'd like to add to that is this plant works. We're going to be in a conundrum at some point over where we're going to send our trash. Currently, we're sending it up to Northwood. You know, we're on a contracted price that's been negotiated through MRC. If we end up going on our own, we're going to be paying more money. $360 and $360,000 and 253. 3 days. So this is something that I really think we need to think about. We produce 5.5 tons of garbage every single day in this town, day in and day out. We're producing garbage. You know, this is the stuff that goes across our scales or into our transfer station. We recycle 2 tons a week. So that's 39 tons a week that we're making. 2 tons of it are recycled. The state wants it at 50%. We're not anywhere close to that. I don't know how they're going to enforce it, but who knows? They're talking about adding fees on to bulky waste. There are all kinds of things are changing here. And I think that the fact that these towns are going to have the opportunity to buy into our own security for waste is pretty beneficial. I mean, obviously, it would be nice somebody else would come into it, but if we own it, we're actually going to save a little bit of money before this is all said and done. $360,000, a lot of money, but really realistically, for the next 30 years, it's not a lot of money. We'd have to go to a special town meeting and get taxpayers to support it. So we could vote to support it on our end, only to lose it at a special town meeting. Trash is there, and we're dealing with it. And, you know, unfortunately, we're going to continue to deal with it. And as this town continues to grow, we're going to produce more and more trash as time marches forward. So nobody wants to be sitting here trying to figure out if we want to put our name on something that hasn't really been up and functioning for a long period of time. But I think this is a risk that is worth looking at. Everything we've done over the last 5-8 years has been a risk. I mean, we've built buildings and started different events, and they've all been risks. So this is just one more that kind of goes along with it. I'm guessing that all of you have probably been on this webpage that I forwarded to you, so you can kind of scout through it and see what it is. So that's my thoughts.
Like Ella says, our waste, while this has been closed down, has been going to Norwalk for landfilling. And there's been a LD 259 in legislature, and I don't think it went anywhere this year, but it'll be back, I'm sure. And they're talking about a $1 to $5 increase per ton fee to go to the state on top of what they charge now for landfilling. So we know landfilling rates will go up at some point. I don't know how much. Might be $1, might be $5, but they're pushing to get this recycling rate up, and they're going to do it by charging you extra to do something else. So it's just, as I say, we got a few months to look at it, think about it, try to learn more about it, and see what we think. We don't have to spend the money. We have to put our full faith and credit towards this loan. So if the place went belly up, then we got to spend our money, but we might never spend this money.
We're dealing with big players on this too. The city of Bangor, the city of Brewer, Orono, all these big towns are going to buy into this thing. I mean, and this has been vetted. It's an operation that down in Virginia, when they had their model plant going, that successfully ran for years before they ended up finding somebody to buy into it. So we're getting limited on choices on where we can send this stuff. Orange Walk is close by, it's kind of nice, but you know, up in Hampton, not that far away either.
Mr. Cox, you have a question?
What was the reason it shut down in the first place?
It was kind of a perfect storm. They were trying to get another new operator in to operate the plant.
Why was that though?
What's that?
Why were they trying to get?
They weren't happy with the maintenance and the operation that this company they hired to operate the plant. They weren't happy with what they were doing. They had proposals out and they found another company that would come in, but they couldn't come here. There was no, COVID started, there wasn't any restaurants, and there wasn't any hotels they could stay in. So they couldn't come, plus they couldn't sell their byproduct to Canada because you couldn't do anything with Canada for a while. I don't know how long that lasted. At some point you could, but
Was it the original investors that were trying to get somebody else to operate it?
they were,
Or
the
was it-
original investors at the time were trying to get a new operator.
Now they're backing out of it.
It was funded by a company called Ultra Capital, and all they are is a bunch of millionaires that sit back with a bunch of money and say, well, you got a business that should make me some money, I'll give you, I think they put 80, was it 80 million, Ella, into this to build it?
I
or
think it was 70.
70 something, okay. A large amount of money into this to build it. This Ultra Capital did. And then the thing went belly up when COVID started.
Was it subsidies involved in that?
Subsidies?
Yeah, state subsidies or federal subsidies involved in it at all?
I didn't understand what you meant.
Financing.
It's a lot of this stuff is subsidized by the governments when they're trying to work something new out around the
Yes.
environment.
Yes, they're trying to see if they can, because there's different agencies in the state that put money into businesses that, and so they're looking at those. I mean, this might never happen that they want us to help fund this, but it's something that they might decide to do come June. And we wanted to bring it up so people could think about it, learn more about it, decide whether we wanted to take that kind of risk or didn't want any part of it. We don't have to do it. No, it's a voluntary thing.
Not related, oh, I guess it's somewhat related to that. Could we have Dylan come in at some point and give us a reminder or an update on what we're actually doing? And that's not a negative impression, but we've got so much that goes into composting. We've got so much that gets buried up there. We get so much that we transfer to Norwich Walk. And I guess I'm just curious, interested to find out what is the status right now? And it has nothing to do with whether we join this or not. But if we have 20 tons per week, and 15 is in this area, and we're taking in 100 gallons of paint each week, I think we're doing a good job. But I would just like to hear a summary to share what the operation is doing.
Recycling is 2 tons a week and trash is 39 tons. You know, as far as the demolition debris that's going down back in the landfill, I don't know what those numbers.
That's what I'm
Those are
saying.
big, go right to the roof though. I mean, our revenues are up high.
But that's what I'm saying, just like, even what do we get for cardboard now? What are we getting for paper? What do we?
That changes every week.
I know.
Yeah.
But just, approximations, just a sort of
Yeah.
a state of the transfer station report.
I will absolutely do that. I'll have that set up for this next council meeting. if you'd like.
And I think we're having a paper recycling coming
Yeah,
up.
that's coming out probably tomorrow. It's going to be a shredding. Yeah.
May 7th, is it a May something?
May 11th, I think.
Or 1st of May.
Is it weekend?
Mr. Gordon, we're getting away from the MRC conversation, but what are we doing with the pile of brush and stuff up there? Is the chipper not working? or-
No, well.
Last time I was up there,
That's
it
been a
was
battle
huge.
day for the last 8 years since I've been here. And the guy that does it is the only operator that actually doesn't charge us to chip it and haul it. So we're kind of working with him. He doesn't really get it cleaned down to ground zero. Most of the stuff goes right up to Sappy. And he's a one-man operation. He's got old equipment, breaks down, but he keeps on puttering on it. We've had other operators come in there, but they want so much per ton to grind it, plus they get to keep the profits when they send it. And by keeping this guy in, it keeps our costs down. We just got a big brush cost. That's all.
It'll be a big blow someday.
Mr. Bob,
If we had to hope for the best outcome, would we hope that somebody buys it other than MRC?
I'm on both sides of that question. That was the safest, be the safest thing for us if somebody bought it, other than us, MRC, which we're part of. But if MRC buys it, we can control our tipping fee. There'll be no profits taken out. Profits will come back to the towns that own the thing. So our tip fee could keep stable or go down as they recycle more product. So it's whether you want to take a risk to save a little money in the future, or whether you think that's too big a risk, and it'd be much better for somebody else to take that risk, and we'll pay the tip fee that they charge us.
And I am absolutely for the towns owning this. MRC is the 115 towns. And, you know, trash is going to always go up. This is one way to manage it.
Well, okay, my beginning position is I hope somebody else buys it. I disagree, but respectfully disagree. There will always be a place to put our trash. The state can't tell us not to generate trash. It's only a question of money, whether we get to bury it or haul it in Orange Walk or send it to MRC or whoever buys that plant. And I've seen the plant work, and it is slick. Just stuff comes in, everything goes with one pile. And at the end of the day, it's all in a bunch of different piles headed for recycling. So that's good. I think when we say that it's got to be in the neighborhood of 300 and some odd $1,000, we don't know that until we find out how many of those 115 towns decide. If half of the towns decide that they don't want to play, then all of a sudden 300 and something thousand becomes 600 something thousand.
Yeah.
So that troubles me, and I don't know how to authorize that we give our full faith and funds to that process until we know what it's going to be. I mean, we might be okay for 300,000. I'm not yet, but we might be. But if it's 600 or 900, I don't think so.
We will know that before we have to decide.
Okay,
Yeah. I mean,
but they're looking now for a kind of a heads
straw
up,
poll.
what we're thinking.
They put out a straw poll in
Yeah.
towns to see what you think. And there's a list of the towns if anybody's interested.
Yeah.
To see what they are.
My straw poll would be no thanks. But I might be willing to change my mind at some point down the road, but right now, I don't think so.
That is the safe bet. You know, if somebody else owns it, we'll pay a tipping fee. That's it. You know,
Yeah.
they can up the tipping fee, and the price will go up in the future. If we own it, we know what the expenses are. We can keep the tipping fee with no profit taken out for anybody. The
Yeah.
profit is by the town.
So the question becomes then, when, depending on who owns it, what the difference in the tipping fees is, and how long that difference takes to get to the amount of money that we're going to guarantee.
Yeah, right.
So it's just
And
it's just about the numbers and the money, and until we know that,
Yeah.
I can't think it's a good idea.
And that's why we're bringing it up now, because we know this is coming up. We wanted to bring it up a few months ahead. People can, you know, beat this around in their head a while, and like we have here at the meeting, and say, this is too much risk for the town of Oakland. Maybe the 350 isn't, but if it's 750, maybe it is.
And I know the people in Augusta are busy, and he looks good tonight, I think. But you'd think the state could find some way to bond or guarantee a $20 million cut to
That's,
benefit all
that's
these
out.
100+
I
towns.
don't think that's out of the question either. I think
Well,
that's a
it'll be
big-
out of the question if we all decide that we'll do it.
so that.
If we play hard to get, somebody in Augusta may decide that they really ought to do it.
So there is another meeting next Wednesday at 10:30, I believe it is, another town meeting through MRC. I don't know if I sent you that link or not, but I will,
I knew there was going to be one, but I don't know that I saw when.
okay, I'll make sure that you all get that link so you can send it on that. there's more questions and more information. They're gonna have this ongoing all the way through. They're gonna keep us abreast of what's happening.
They're putting on these Zoom meetings, to try to keep people, like we did here tonight, up to speed on where the process is.
Now, I listened to the last meeting they had, the Zoom meeting or whatever it was, I listened to that meeting. I thought it was informative, I thought they were good-hearted, I thought they were headed in the right direction, but good-hearted doesn't get
Until we have to sign the check.
money out of me. Yeah, I'm done.
Ellen, do you have anything else?
I do not, other than the fact that I'm gonna be on vacation next week.
Vacation next week? Mayor Madison, last one. Mr. Cox. Davis.
I'm all set.
Bob.
All set?
Sorry.
All set. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second it.
All in favor? Thank you, folks.
It's good, it's good discussion. One you had, but so I got this back.
You know, it's hard to do that because people are hopping at once.
It's hard to wait.
Send that back.
You know,